Hi, I'm going to be talking about police and mental illness. This topic is really important to me because my future career goal is to be a police officer. Um, and I feel like if the more people talk about this issue, the easier it's going to be. This issue has a tendency to be kind of ignored. It's getting better, but it often is overlooked as not something that's really important. And I'm hoping that as this new generation of police officers comes into the force, that they'll be able to actually bring more of this information to chiefs and just the big boards that kind of direct these things, so that future police officers have a better chance at doing a better job. So this issue is being talked about more, but in the past it was very stigmatized. A lot of people didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to go to a therapist, go to a psychologist, get the help they needed because it was stigmatized. Police officers often have a tough exterior kind of thing, and their jobs are difficult, so they do get really tough sometimes, but that doesn't mean they don't still hurt. They still feel those things. So talking about it brings the awareness, and it helps people understand that these people are still human. So as many people know, police officers have a very difficult job. It can be very stressful at times, and a lot of police officers struggle with mental illness, just because the job it's not an easy job. So the way to address this is to honestly talk about it, get people to understand this is important. Mental health is very important to any job, but specifically police officers because they have a very difficult job. It's so important to keep your mind healthy as well as your body. So in 2018, a study was done on two Canadian police departments where the officers were questioned or asked just kind of about their mental state, where they thought their mental health was. So it was reported that 52% reported moderate to severe stress, 88% reported moderate to severe anxiety, 87% reported moderate to severe depression, and 29% were in the clinical diagnostic range for PTSD. So the 88% and 87% really jump out at me, specifically because those anxiety and depression are very common in a lot of people, especially police officers. Like, those numbers are very high. That's a very high number. And that's only two police departments in Canada. So 88 and 87% are struggling with anxiety and depression, and yet still do their job like every day. And that's hard to deal with that. And once you get in that loop of maybe not talking about it or just feeling comfortable kind of in that situation, it's really hard to get out of it and to be able to talk about it, just so you can get better. Sometimes you don't even realize how bad it's gotten, because you're just so used to suppressing it, which is very damaging. It can lead to PTSD, anxiety, like very strongest anxiety disorders, depression, and eventually it could lead to suicide as well. Also, police officers are highly likely or more likely to commit suicide than the general public just because of the job they do, and the lack of talking about their issues and their traumas that they're going through. So there's two kinds of stress that are really emphasized in the police world. The first one is operational stress. So that's like the stress and trauma police officers experience in their daily job, which can lead to OSIs, which is operational stress injuries. So psychological issues, such as anxiety, depression, PTSD. And the second one is organizational stress, which comes from a lack of organization within the job. So wherever they work, if like there's a really bad management system or it's very unorganized, it can lead to that kind of stress, organizational stress, which is just as big as operational stress. It can put a lot of strain on a person, and make them feel like they're not doing their job properly. So there's still the stigma there, that police have a tough exterior and that nothing gets to them. And it's not as big now. It's definitely gotten a lot better, which is really good. but it's still there. And so to minimize that, we just need to keep talking about it, and make people more aware. And remember that these people are humans, you know. So the federal government included the development of a National Action Plan on PTSD in 2015. And it was followed by the Standing Committee Public Safety and National Security Report that stressed the need for a national strategy on OSI, so those operational stress injuries, which is really good because obviously federal is the country. And so having the country tell you that this is important and create programs and ideas that this needs to be addressed is really important. That's really big because people see that and they understand that this is important, and it's not just being overlooked by the government. So that's really important. It's just really important that governments, provincial, federal, municipal, all work together to create these programs. And it can be different for each province as well. Not every province is going to have the same issues, and not every city is going to have the same issues. So it really needs to be taken care of, looked at by these people in these certain cities, honestly, by city. Like it needs to be addressed that specifically. Sometimes even departments, like they need to be addressed because they're all different. But it's a really good start that the federal government has done these, created this idea that this is important. There's been lots of progress as well throughout the years. So in May 2014, this is just a really important thing to me. So in May 2014, the RCMP included a 5-year mental health strategy, which has been working. And it creates the goal was to create a healthier workplace for the employees. So the goals of that strategy was to take steps into helping emphasize employee psychological health. So that was really good because it addressed the actual issue and made people aware. Minimize the stigma around psychological health problems within the RCMP. So again, minimize the stigma, create a normal aspect that this is something that just needs to happen. And then to continually improve, manage programs that are already in use. So to make sure those programs are working, what can they do to change them if they need to? How can they just make it better and easier for people? So yeah, the best part about these programs and services is that they're getting the police officers the help they actually need, regardless of if they know it or not. They do need this help, regardless of what they're told from maybe their chiefs or their coworkers. They do need this help because a lot of police officers struggle with mental illness. The only thing that needs to happen more of is that they need to be more mandatory. Like more of these programs need to be mandatory because it's so important, but it's sometimes still overlooked. Police officers just think they're fine, but they're not. And it needs to be mandatory so they can actually address what they're feeling. So an example of one of these mandatory programs is the RCMP has in place a program that is mandatory for officers in high-risk postings, so that they have to go through this, they have to talk about it, they have to be open about it to get through it and not just hold it in, suppress it, and become very mentally ill. So to wrap it up, the fact of the matter is we're always going to need law enforcement. And if we want them to protect us, we need to be able to protect them. They need to be able to protect themselves physically, but also mentally, because if they're not okay mentally, they cannot do their jobs properly. So yeah, that's what I have, and I hope you liked it.